My sister-in-law accused me of cheating and even claimed my newborn wasn't my husband's while I was still in the hospital. It was cruel and humiliating. But now, everything has come full circle. Her own husband has left her after a DNA test revealed that she was the one who had been unfaithful, and the baby isn't his. My own sister-in-law, in my weakest moment, tried to plant a seed of doubt that would shatter my new family. She accused me of infidelity, whispered that my newborn wasn't my husband's, but the universe had a dark, twisted sense of humor because it served her the exact same betrayal, multiplied tenfold. The hospital room was cloaked in the sterile scent of disinfectant, softened only slightly by the fading twilight filtering through the blinds. Outside, the city hummed a distant, muffled lullaby, a stark contrast to the earthquake that was about to shake the fragile peace within these walls. When I found out I was pregnant, honestly, I felt like the luckiest person alive. Ethan and I had been trying for what felt like forever, navigating cycle after cycle of hope and crushing disappointment. But then, that positive test finally showed up, shining like a beacon in my hand, and it was like a dream come true. We were beyond ecstatic. Our families, for the most part, were thrilled too. But there was one person who just wasn't. My sister-in-law, Chloe. Chloe and we never really clicked. She was always the type to make these little comments that sounded like jokes but felt sharper than a knife. Things like, "Wow, you're brave to wear that." Or, "I don't know how you two make it work, but good for you." It was always something, always a quiet, insidious jab. Ethan, bless his heart, would just shrug and say, "That's Chloe. She doesn't mean anything by it." So, I tried to let it roll off my back, tried not to let her get to me. But during my pregnancy, her comments started to feel different. Worse. She'd make these really weird, uncomfortable jokes about how Ethan and I weren't exactly alike, and how it would be hilarious if our baby, Riley, didn't take after him. I didn't say anything because who needs drama when you're pregnant and already feeling so many things, right? But deep down, it stung. I kept telling myself I was overthinking it, that she was just being Chloe, projecting her own insecurities. Then, Riley was born, and everything just went wrong. I'd planned for a smooth delivery, envisioned that perfect, serene moment, but it turned into an emergency C-section. After that, I had complications and ended up in the ICU for a few days. It was one of the hardest, most terrifying times of my life. I felt so weak, so scared, constantly worrying if I'd even be okay for Riley and Ethan, if I'd ever hold my child again. And it was while I was lying there, barely able to sit up, my body aching and my mind foggy with medication, that Ethan told me something that completely shattered my already fragile world. He said Chloe had actually told him he should get a DNA test for Riley. She'd brought it up while I was still in surgery, recovering. Can you believe the audacity? The sheer, unmitigated gall? Apparently, she said something chilling like, "You never know these days. It's better to check and be sure." Ethan said he told her to stop, that he trusted me completely. He didn't even think twice about it, but he felt I deserved to know. I was utterly floored, humiliated, hurt. Here I was, fighting for my life, and Chloe was out there sowing seeds of doubt, suggesting my baby might not even be Ethan's. There was absolutely no reason for her to say that. I had never, ever given anyone cause to question my faithfulness. It felt like she was trying to tear me down when I was already at my lowest, most vulnerable point. A cruel, calculated strike. When I asked Ethan why he didn't shut her down harder, why he even entertained her nonsense for a second, he just said he didn't want to make a scene. He thought brushing it off would make her stop. He just didn't get how serious this was to me, how deeply it cut. Knowing what Chloe had said, while I was literally fighting for my life, I felt betrayed, not just by her, but honestly a little bit by Ethan, too, for not protecting me more fiercely. After we brought Riley home, I tried to move past it, tried to bury the anger, but I couldn't. Chloe was always around because she visited my in-laws, Brenda and Robert, all the time. Every time I saw her, it was like a fresh wound reopening. I kept picturing her, laughing to herself, maybe even spreading rumors to other people that Ethan needed to check if Riley was really his. I felt sick every time I imagined her holding my baby, pretending to care, her eyes glinting with some secret satisfaction. What made it even worse was when Chloe found out I was upset. Instead of apologizing, she weaponized it. She started telling people I was being hormonal and overreacting. She even called me a B word behind my back, saying I needed to lighten up. She acted like her DNA comment was no big deal, like I was the one blowing it out of proportion. I heard all this from other family members who thought I should know what she was saying, people who were genuinely shocked by her behavior. Every word felt like another slap in the face. Chloe didn't just say something hurtful. She doubled down, then painted herself as the victim. Even at family gatherings, she wouldn't stop. She'd make these little comments like, "Wow, Riley's so cute, but she doesn't really look like Ethan, does she?" Then she'd giggle, a high-pitched, fake sound, like it was the funniest thing in the world. I knew she was doing it on purpose to push my buttons, to see me squirm, and it worked. I couldn't hide my anger. I started avoiding family events just to avoid her, to avoid the toxic cloud she brought with her. Ethan tried to talk to her, but it didn't do much. He told her to stop bringing up the DNA test and to quit making jokes about Riley's looks. But Chloe just didn't care. She kept saying I was overreacting, that she didn't mean anything by it. It was like nothing I felt mattered to her. I couldn't understand how someone could be so cruel. I had just gone through a traumatic birth, and instead of support, Chloe tried to tear me down. And when I got upset, she mocked me for it. It felt like no one fully understood how deeply it affected me. Even Ethan, who tried to defend me, didn't seem to grasp the true emotional damage. Chloe turned our whole family into a minefield for me. Every get-together was a source of anxiety. Even when she wasn't there, I'd wonder what she was saying behind my back, what new venom she was spewing. It was exhausting. Brenda and Robert, my in-laws, didn't get involved much. Brenda told Chloe to drop it once, a half-hearted warning, but it felt so insufficient. I wanted someone to truly tell Chloe that what she did was wrong, that she crossed a line. Instead, it felt like everyone was just brushing it off, waiting for me to get over it. The whole thing irrevocably changed how I saw Chloe. I'd never particularly liked her, but now I couldn't even be in the same room without feeling a surge of anger and disgust. I didn't want her anywhere near me or Riley. It wasn't just the DNA comment. It was her refusal to apologize, her refusal to take any responsibility. She acted like I was the problem, not her. Then one day, months later, Chloe called me out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to her in ages, and honestly, I never expected to hear from her again. After everything she'd done, we were definitely not on good terms. But this call was different. She sounded different. Sad. Desperate even. Her voice was thin, reedy, completely unlike her usual sharp tone. She started talking about her life. Chloe had just had a baby, and things had gone completely, horribly wrong for her. Her husband, Daniel, had left her shortly after the baby was born. She explained that Daniel had doubts about whether the baby was his. At first, I thought she was exaggerating, trying to garner sympathy, but then she admitted it. Daniel went ahead and got a DNA test done. And the test proved it. The baby wasn't his. Hearing her admit that felt like something out of a movie, a twisted, poetic justice. This was the same woman who had once told my husband to test our baby because you can never be too sure. She'd planted doubt in Ethan's mind, made my life a living hell when I was already at my lowest. And now, karma had come around and hit her harder than I could have ever imagined. The universe, it seemed, was not without its cruel irony. After the results, Daniel didn't stick around. He packed his bags and left her alone, with a newborn named Luna and absolutely no support. Chloe told me the rest of the family had turned their backs on her, too. Brenda and Robert didn't want her to stay with them, and no one else in the family would help either. And then she asked the impossible, if she and her baby could move in with us. When I heard her say that, I froze. This woman had treated me like dirt for years. She made my life miserable after Riley was born, throwing around cruel accusations and jokes at my expense. She called me names, made me feel completely worthless. And now she wanted me to let her into my home, to help her? At first, all I felt was pure, unadulterated anger. How dare she ask me for help after everything she did? She never apologized, never truly tried to make things right. She just went on with her life like nothing happened. And now that she was in trouble, she wanted me to bail her out? The gall. But then I started thinking about her baby, Luna. None of this was that innocent child's fault. It wasn't fair for a baby to suffer because of Chloe's mistakes. No matter how much I disliked Chloe, how much I resented her, I couldn't ignore the fact that there was an innocent life involved. At the same time, I had to think about my own family. Ethan and I had worked so hard to create a stable, happy home for Riley. Things were finally starting to feel normal again after all the drama Chloe caused. Letting her move in felt like inviting chaos straight back into our lives, a poisonous snake into our garden. I didn't trust her, and I wasn't sure I ever could. Ethan wasn't thrilled about the idea either. He was angry at Chloe for how she treated me and didn't think she deserved our help. But he also felt bad for her. She was his sister, and no matter how awful she'd been, he didn't want to see her completely alone, stranded with a newborn. I went back and forth, agonizing over what to do. On one hand, Chloe created this mess herself. She lied to her husband. She was unfaithful, and now she was dealing with the consequences. She didn't deserve sympathy for that, not after what she put me through. On the other hand, how could I turn her away when she was clearly at her lowest point? I also couldn't shake the feeling that her apology wasn't genuine. She said she was sorry for everything, but it felt more like she was saying what she thought I wanted to hear, a desperate plea rather than a heartfelt confession. It didn't feel real, and I couldn't bring myself to believe her. I wondered if she'd really changed, or if she'd just go back to her old ways the moment she got back on her feet, once the immediate crisis passed. Chloe had always been quick to judge, to tear others down. What would happen if I let her move in? Would she treat me with any respect, or would she just take advantage of my kindness, twisting it into weakness? I tried to focus on the facts. Chloe had burned all her bridges. Daniel was gone. Her own parents weren't willing to help her. She had no one else to turn to, which was why she came to me. But that wasn't my fault. She had put herself in this situation. It wasn't my responsibility to fix it for her. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about Luna. As much as I didn't want Chloe in my life, I felt terrible for the child. Turning her away felt like punishing an innocent baby for something that wasn't their fault. But letting her move in felt like inviting trouble directly into my home, jeopardizing the peace we'd fought so hard for. The whole situation left me feeling utterly torn, a knot in my stomach that wouldn't loosen. I don't want to be the kind of person who turns away someone in need, but I also didn't want to put my family at risk. Chloe had caused so much pain in the past, and I wasn't sure I was ready to forgive her. Now I'm stuck, trying to figure out what to do. No matter what I decide, it feels like the wrong choice. Update 1. A fragile peace after a lot of agonizing back and forth, late-night discussions, and weighing every single pro and con. Ethan and I decided to let Chloe move into an apartment we owned. We'd originally bought it a few years ago as a rental property for extra income, a little nest egg. But with everything going on, it seemed like the best option for her. This way, she wouldn't have to live with us directly, sparing us from daily tension, but at least she'd have a roof over her head. Ethan made it clear that while she wouldn't have to pay rent, she would need to cover her own bills, utilities, groceries, everything else. It felt fair to us, a compromise. Brenda and Robert thought it was incredibly generous, especially given Chloe's situation. They encouraged her to take it, and she agreed, though without much enthusiasm. For a while, everything seemed fine. Chloe mostly kept to herself. Things were still a little awkward between us, a strained politeness, but I started to think maybe, just maybe, it could work out if she stayed in the apartment and focused on figuring things out on her own. For a bit, the arrangement actually worked, and I even started to believe we might be able to move past everything. But then, something completely unexpected happened. We found out that Daniel, Chloe's ex-husband, had filed a restraining order against her. It was shocking. For months, Chloe had been regularly calling family members, staying in touch, maintaining some semblance of connection. Then, suddenly, silence. No one had heard from her. This news caught us all completely off guard. We didn't know what to think. It was just so unexpected, so out of character, even for her. Ethan happened to be talking to Daniel about work, and he decided to ask him what was going on. Daniel didn't hold anything back. He told Ethan the whole, horrifying story. According to Daniel, Chloe had been stalking him. She had been showing up at his workplace uninvited, lingering outside his house, following him around. This wasn't a one-off thing. It had been going on for weeks, a relentless, unsettling campaign. Daniel said she was even bothering his family members, showing up at their homes, making them incredibly uncomfortable, truly harassing them. When Daniel finally confronted Chloe, she broke down. She begged him to come back, told him she loved him, said she'd made a huge mistake. She promised she'd do anything to fix things between them. She wanted him back, and she couldn't stand the thought of him being with someone else. But Daniel was crystal clear. He told her he was done. He reminded her of the affair, which was obviously a deal-breaker, a wound too deep to heal. He told her he was finished, and nothing would change that. Chloe didn't listen. She just kept following him, showing up wherever he was, calling him nonstop. She even went as far as contacting his immediate and extended family, spreading her desperation. It got so bad that Daniel had no choice. He had to file for a restraining order. He just needed her to leave him alone and let him move on. When Ethan found out, he immediately told Brenda and Robert. They were absolutely shocked and profoundly disappointed. Their sister, their daughter, reduced to this. At first, they didn't know how to react, lost for words, but eventually, they decided to confront Chloe about it. When they asked her about the restraining order, Chloe denied everything. She claimed Daniel was lying, that it wasn't true, that he was making it all up to hurt her. But no one believed her. It just didn't add up. If Daniel had gone through the trouble of filing a restraining order, if he'd laid bare such personal details, something serious had to have happened. Brenda asked her flat out, her voice tight with frustration. Why would Daniel go to such lengths if nothing happened? Chloe didn't have an answer. She just sat there in silence, her eyes downcast. After that conversation, no one in the family spoke to her. It was clear she'd made some truly egregious mistakes, and no one was willing to take her side anymore. She was still living in the apartment, but her relationship with the family was clearly falling apart, splintering into irreconcilable pieces. Chloe kept trying to reach out, calling everyone multiple times, but no one answered. Her calls went ignored. She had burned too many bridges, too many times, and now she was completely on her own. At first, I almost felt bad for her. She was clearly struggling, and it seemed like she had no one left. But at the same time, I knew she had put herself in this situation. She was the one who made those choices, who pushed everyone away with her selfishness and denial. It wasn't up to us to fix things for her. She had to want to fix them for herself. Ethan and I decided to stay a little distant from the situation. We wanted to make sure everything was okay with her living in the apartment, that she wasn't in any danger, but we didn't want to get too deeply involved in the family drama. We hoped Chloe would eventually face the reality of what she'd done and try to change her behavior. But as time went on, things only seemed to get worse. No one in the family was speaking to her. She kept calling, but no one would pick up. It was undeniable that her actions had pushed everyone away, and now she was facing the full consequences. I tried to stay out of it. I didn't want to be the one to fix things for Chloe, especially after everything she'd done to me. It was heartbreaking to see her struggling, but she needed to take responsibility for her actions. As much as Ethan wanted to help her, he knew that she had to want to change first. She couldn't expect anyone to fix things for her if she wasn't willing to put in the effort herself. I'm still not sure where things will go from here. Chloe is still living in the apartment, but the tension with the family is higher than ever, a silent, suffocating presence. No one knows what to do next, and no one seems to want to get involved. Ethan and I are just waiting to see whether things improve or get even worse. At this point, I'm not sure what more we can do. We gave her a chance, and now it's up to her to make things right. Until she takes genuine responsibility for her actions, I don't think anything will truly change. Update 2. The jaw-dropping reveal recently, we had a family dinner at Brenda and Robert's place. It was already a bit strange, a little fraught, because things had been so awkward with Chloe for a while, but we were all trying to keep the peace, to pretend like everything was normal. However, as soon as she arrived, we knew something was definitely off. Chloe was nearly 2 hours late. We'd all been sitting around, chatting and waiting, our stomachs rumbling, but she wasn't usually that late, especially for a family dinner. When she finally walked in, it was glaringly obvious that something was wrong. She didn't look like herself at all. Chloe has always been the type to make sure she looks her absolute best, from her perfectly styled clothes to her impeccably done hair. But that night, she looked completely different. Her hair was messy, as if she'd just rolled out of bed. Her clothes were mismatched and rumpled, nothing she'd normally wear. She just looked disoriented, like she was mentally somewhere else entirely, lost in a fog. Everyone at the table exchanged glances, a collective understanding that something wasn't quite right. A little while after Chloe finally showed up, Robert's friend, Richard, arrived. Now, this was really strange. Robert hadn't told anyone he was inviting Richard. We were all a little confused, whispering, but we didn't think too much of it at first. Maybe he'd just decided to bring him along at the last minute. But the timing felt odd, and the whole vibe in the room had already shifted with Chloe's weird arrival, a subtle current of unease. Chloe then went upstairs to put her daughter, Luna, to bed. A few minutes later, she came back down, and that's when things got even weirder. She walked straight over to Richard, kissed him on the lips, a long, lingering kiss, and then, completely casually, introduced him to everyone. It was like the air just got sucked out of the room. We all sat there, staring, mouths slightly agape. Chloe acting like nothing was wrong, the way she just announced him, kissed him in front of her parents, her brother, her family. So strange, so brazen. She then dropped the bomb. Of course, you guys know him as Dad's friend, but what you don't know is that he's also Luna's daddy. Everyone froze. Utter silence. You could hear a pin drop in that room. We had no idea what to say, what to think. Robert looked utterly shocked, his face paling, and so did everyone else. Chloe just stood there, completely casual, a faint, almost triumphant smile on her lips, like this was totally normal, like she'd just announced a new haircut. The tension in the room was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Robert was the first to speak, but honestly, he looked like he was about to lose it. He was so angry, so utterly livid, I thought he might actually punch Richard. Ethan had to jump in and stop him from doing anything, putting a hand on his arm, whispering frantic, calming words. Robert started firing a million questions at Richard, his voice trembling with rage, trying to figure out what was going on, how long this had been happening, and why he hadn't told anyone. Richard seemed oddly calm about the whole thing, almost smug. He didn't seem bothered by the shock he'd just caused. He didn't really answer many of Robert's questions, just sort of shrugged and said that everything was fine, as if that explained a secret affair and a surprise baby. Then Chloe dropped another bombshell. She casually told us that she wouldn't need the apartment anymore because she'd be moving in with Richard at his family home. It was like she was just letting everyone know about her new life, her big plans, with no warning, no discussion, just a definitive statement. And she seemed so sure about everything, so absolutely certain, like she had it all figured out, and the rest of us were just supposed to accept it, no questions asked. Brenda, still trying to process everything, her voice tight with disbelief, then asked Richard about his wife. The room held its breath. Richard didn't seem uncomfortable at all. He told us that he and his wife, Sarah, were already separated and going through a divorce. It didn't seem to faze him, but for the rest of us, it felt like everything had just turned completely upside down, like the ground had fallen out from beneath us. The rest of the evening was a complete blur of awkwardness, a stifling silence punctuated by forced conversation. Everyone was trying to process what had just happened, and no one knew how to react, how to even look at Chloe or Richard. It was so hard to understand how Chloe had gotten to this point. She used to be so different, so put together, so ambitious, but now it was like she had completely lost touch with reality, wandering through her own bizarre narrative. A few days after the dinner, Brenda and Robert called me and Ethan over to their house. They asked us to come, but they specifically told Chloe to leave Richard out of it this time. It was clear they wanted to talk to her alone, to try and shake some sense into her. We went over, unsure of what to expect, bracing ourselves. When we got there, things didn't start off well. Brenda and Robert were both clearly very upset, their faces etched with worry and disappointment. They sat Chloe down and started talking about her relationship with Richard. They asked her if she knew what she was doing, if she understood the consequences of being with someone twice her age, especially when his kids were older than she was, how bizarre that dynamic was. Brenda kept asking her why she was making these decisions, her voice pleading, and it was clear she fundamentally disagreed with Chloe's choice, finding it reckless and incomprehensible. Chloe, though, was convinced that everything would be fine. She said she was sure about her decision, her gaze unwavering, and that everything would work out once Richard's divorce was final. She seemed so certain of herself, so utterly confident, but the rest of us couldn't understand how she could be so sure, how she could be so blind to the potential fallout. David and Juan kept trying to get through to her, to appeal to her sense of reason, but Chloe wouldn't listen. She wasn't angry or defensive. She just kept repeating that everything would work out, that she was happy with her decision, and no one needed to worry about her. It was so clear that no matter what anyone said, she wasn't going to change her mind. The whole conversation felt like a dead end, like talking to a brick wall. We all tried to explain our concerns, our fears for her and Luna, but Chloe didn't seem to care. It was like she had already made up her mind, sealed her fate, and nothing was going to make her see things differently. At one point, I felt like I didn't even know who she was anymore. It was hard to imagine the Chloe we knew now being the same person who used to care so much about her family and her future, who was once so calculated. No one really knows how to react to all this. It's so out of character for Chloe, and it's hard to understand how she ended up here, in this bizarre, tangled web. I think everyone in the family is still in shock, reeling from the revelations. We've tried to talk to her, to tell her that this isn't the right path, but it's like she's in her own little world now, a world of her own making, and there's no way to bring her back. Update 3. A whirlwind of consequences. It's been a truly strange couple of months, and things with Chloe and Richard have only become more complicated, more surreal. I honestly don't know what to think anymore. Everyone's just feeling so confused and uncomfortable about everything, a cloud of unease hanging over us all. The situation keeps getting messy, and the more we try to make sense of it, the more questions just keep popping up, creating new layers of complexity. It's hard to keep track of how all this has spiraled so wildly out of control. Robert, especially, is the most hurt by all of this. Richard has been his friend since high school. They've known each other for decades, through thick and thin, through milestones and heartbreaks. Robert never imagined, not in a million years, that Richard would end up with Chloe. I don't think any of us could have predicted this shocking betrayal of friendship and family. And to make it worse, it all happened so quickly, a dizzying blur of events. It was just too much, too fast, too unbelievable. 2 months ago, Richard's divorce was finalized. I remember when he told everyone about it, his tone flat, almost indifferent. It wasn't a huge surprise, as he and Sarah had been having problems for years, a quiet, simmering resentment. But still, you could tell it hit Robert hard. They had all been friends for so long, a tight-knit group, and this was just something no one ever expected to see. Richard and Sarah had always seemed so solid, like a perfect family, a fixture in our lives. But then, the very next day after his divorce went through, Richard proposed to Chloe. Yeah, you read that right. The next day. I don't even know what to say about that. The speed, the audacity, the utter disregard for any sense of normalcy. It was like they were moving in a whirlwind, caught up in some self-made storm. The proposal was so quick, so abrupt, and the engagement seemed like it came out of nowhere, a bolt from the blue. Chloe, of course, was ecstatic. She was thrilled that things were moving so fast, validating her choices. But for the rest of us, it just felt rushed and incredibly strange, deeply unsettling. And then just last week they got married. They certainly didn't waste any time, did they? The wedding was huge, way bigger than anyone expected, a lavish affair that felt almost defiant. Everyone was talking about it, the whispers filling every corner of the reception hall. People couldn't help but gossip, their eyes darting, trying to figure out what the hell was going on behind the scenes, how this improbable pairing had actually happened. I can't even count how many times I overheard people talking about how bizarre this whole thing was, shaking their heads in disbelief. Brenda was telling me how uncomfortable she felt, especially because of her connection with Richard's ex-wife, Sarah. Sarah and Brenda have been friends for years, a bond forged over decades, and Sarah has always been a part of our extended family circle. I know Brenda felt really torn about the whole situation, her heart aching. She wasn't sure where her loyalty should lie, between her daughter and her longtime friend. But when Sarah found out about Chloe and Richard's relationship, it was like everything changed. Sarah's suspicions about Richard having an affair were now confirmed, starkly, irrevocably. She felt completely betrayed, her trust shattered, and the whole thing turned ugly, a painful public spectacle. It wasn't just the affair. It was the fact that Richard had gotten Chloe pregnant while he was still married to Sarah. That was the final, devastating blow. Sarah just couldn't handle it. And now, she'd completely cut Brenda off. That's what's been eating at Brenda, a deep, gnawing guilt. She's been feeling so guilty about losing Charlotte's friendship, the weight of it crushing her. Sarah had been her friend for decades, a confidant, and now it feels like their friendship is over, just like that, irrevocably broken by Chloe's choices. I can tell it's really bothering Brenda, her eyes distant and sad, and I don't know how to help her, how to mend a wound that wasn't even mine to begin with. The whole thing is just so messy, so deeply entangled. Sarah isn't even talking to anyone in the family now, feeling utterly abandoned, and I'm sure Brenda is feeling the crushing weight of it all. As for Chloe, she seems happy, I guess. At least that's how it looks on the surface, from the carefully curated posts on her social media. She's been posting about her new life with Richard nonstop, acting like everything is perfect, a fairy tale come true. She's got a new husband, a new home, and from the outside, it seems like they're living the dream, proving everyone wrong. But I can't help but feel like there's so much more to this story, a dark undercurrent beneath the glittering facade. Something just doesn't sit right with me, a persistent intuition, and I'm not the only one feeling that way. It's hard to trust the situation, especially when there's so much history, so many unresolved issues, so many deeply hurt feelings simmering beneath the surface. We're all incredibly skeptical about how this will turn out. Chloe and Richard seem to think everything will work out fine, that their love will conquer all, but I don't know. We've all seen things fall apart before. We saw how quickly things moved between them, how carelessly they brushed aside the hurt they caused, and it's just hard to believe that this whirlwind romance will last, that it's built on solid ground. I want to be happy for Chloe, truly, for her to find some peace, but I'm struggling to shake the feeling that she's making a huge, colossal mistake, a monumental misstep. There's just too much baggage, too many people involved with hurt feelings and betrayals. The more I think about it, the more I realize that none of us has really gotten a chance to process everything, to grieve the losses, to understand the motivations. We haven't had time to talk about how we feel about all this, and now it's all just happened so quickly, a runaway train that nobody could stop. The wedding, the divorce, the affair, the way Chloe jumped into this relationship. It's like everything's been happening in fast forward, and we're all left in the dust trying to catch up, trying to make sense of the chaos. So, that's where we are. This whole situation is just beyond. It's a testament to how tangled and painful family can get, how the ripples of one person's choices can devastate so many others. What do you guys think? Has anyone ever seen family drama escalate this wildly? So many lives turned upside down so quickly? Seriously, tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know if I'm crazy for feeling this uneasy about it all.